I am excited to talk to you today about artificial intelligence and specifically about its role in education moving forward. I will tell you that there are some misnomers that we'll talk about today to kind of clear up, but we are still very much in the infancy of what this looks like in schools. So what I talk about today when I've talked with teachers this year several times is that what I'm telling you may look very different a month from now, 2 months from now, even 3 months from now. So know that this is an ever-evolving topic, and it's changing day by day even. Please, come sit right up in the front. We love those eager learners in the front row. So what you'll hear today, nothing is set in stone. Everything is evolving, much like technology always is. It changes and changes and changes. You'll notice on the table in front of you, I put out copies of our guiding principles, our AI guiding principles. We will review those. You're welcome to look at them as we go. This is a new document that we worked on this year in partnership with teachers and the leadership team. So let's go ahead and get started. You'll notice that in our guiding principles, we specifically reference and they're built around our values. So we've built our AI guiding principles against our school values. Okay, topics for today. We're going to go through 4 different topics today. First, we're going to start about understanding artificial intelligence and specifically generative artificial intelligence. I'll talk a little bit about the difference and what they are and maybe why this is such a big topic right now, even though artificial intelligence really is nothing new. We're going to look at how government organizations and NGOs are regulating AI and their role and how they're trying to help us find a pathway through the forest in terms of where we're going with AI. And then we're going to look at what schools are doing, including AIS. I talked to lots of different schools, especially here within Europe, and we all have the same questions, and we've all got a little bit of FOMO, or a fear of missing out. You go to a conference and you're like, hey, what are you guys doing? I heard that you're doing this. No, we're not doing that. Are you doing that? No, we're not doing that either. So it's the same as everything else you see with social media. You see all those beautiful people on social media and how great their lives are. The reality is everybody's trying to figure this out together right now, playing a little bit of catch up. And then last, probably why you're here more than any other reason, is how can I help my children with artificial intelligence? What can we do in the house to help them be successful as learners and as people? Okay. Recently, 5 of us from the school went to the Learning 2 conference at the American School of Paris. The Learning 2 conference is about education, but it has a very technology focus to it. So we went, I think it was about a month ago. There was about 50 to 70 educators there, and one of the people that was speaking, there was 2 quotes that really stuck with me. One was more for teachers, and one I thought was very applicable here. That right now, we are working with the worst version of AI that we will ever work with in our lives. So as amazing as all those things that ChatGPT and Gemini and Cloud are doing right now it's actually the worst version. Every day it gets better and better and better. And my 11-year-old, when she's going into the workforce, when she's 24, and my 6-year-old, AI isn't going away. And not only is it not going away, it's going to get better and do things better and help us as humans better all the time. So we have to remember that when we're looking at the future, we're looking at something that's going to continue to evolve and improve at, some would say, an exponential rate, if not at a very advanced rate. Okay, so what is artificial intelligence? Well, there's been a lot of news since ChatGPT kind of was made public in November of 22, but artificial intelligence isn't something new. The EU Commission, when it talks about artificial intelligence, says when we talk about AI systems, we are referring to software in computers or machines that are programmed to perform tasks that usually require human intelligence, i.e. learning or reasoning. So anything that a computer can do that involves reasoning or learning is artificial intelligence. And I think you'll see, well, we're going to talk about generative AI in a bit. All of these tools up here, most of us use on a daily basis, and are forms of artificial intelligence, and are things that we've been using for years. So when Gmail sorts your email for you into important and unread, and then maybe less important. That's artificial intelligence, right? When you go into Google Maps and you're saying, I need to go to Prater, that's artificial intelligence. It's looking at traffic patterns and suggesting a route for you. That's reasoning. When you go to Netflix and it says, hey, last night I saw that you watched, I don't know, Bluey. I guess Bluey's not on Netflix. We watch a lot of Bluey. We think you might also want to watch Paw Patrol. Artificial intelligence right there with its recommendation. Grammarly, when you talk to Alexa. Airbnb, when you're looking for a place. Does everybody know AlphaGo? AlphaGo was a program that was developed by Google's DeepMind to play Go. And it competed against humans. There's a really great documentary that talks about how AlphaGo defeated one of the Go champions. I can't remember his name. And so this is one of the earliest instances of what people might regularly think of artificial intelligence. But while these are all part of our lives every day, these earlier versions of artificial intelligence required people who had specific training to work with them and to work specifically with them. And now we've moved into things that help provide us with suggestions. Where certain AI systems can be trained, right? All of these are trained on large data sets to then go ahead and make some sort of prediction or recommendation, okay? None of these are actually creating anything, but they're helping make predictions so that we can make better decisions. Please come on in and join us. Artificial intelligence has actually been around for almost 75 years, okay? If you go back to when the very first computer was created, artificial intelligence wasn't long after that. Training computers to differentiate between different pictures and things like that. All of this has been around. So don't think of artificial intelligence as something new. It's not new. It's been around for a long time. What is new is the ability for us to interact with it so easily. So generative AI is any sort of artificial intelligence that is creating something. And that's been around for a while too, but what has made it kind of explode in the past year and a half are chatbots. The ability for a person without expertise to hop on the internet, type in a simple prompt, and get an output. So this is where the explosion has happened, and it's with all the other explosions in technology. Access to it, ability to make it accessible to everyone is what has created this explosion in artificial intelligence via these chatbots. Additionally, the computational power that's available now to companies like OpenAI and Google to create these large language models that underlie all these chatbots also has created this explosion. And then private and public investment, the billions upon billions of dollars that are being invested. You can see lots of different graphs if you look online at the growth of artificial intelligence and the investment in it, and it's crazy and it's not going to stop. Now, some of the thought around that is that it will slow down a little bit because all of that public data has already been used to develop these large language models. So all of the movement moving forward will be getting access to that scholarly data. And that's what these companies are paying for now. They're buying up all that good data to train their models to make them smarter. Here's just a little graph that looks at the growth of artificial intelligence or generative artificial intelligence tools over the years. You can see we're here right now. The expectation is that by 2030, there'll be 730 million users. Right now, we're looking at about 250 million users. So that growth, not quite exponential, but it's definitely going to continue. So with that, this isn't something that we can ignore, right? Not as people, also not as educators. So we can't simply bury our head in the sand and hope that this passes by and that it won't change our lives. You'll notice that I bet when we look at most of these icons, everybody's very familiar with all of these. Soon, these will be the icons that you're all familiar with. I'm sure everybody knows Google, and we've got Microsoft Copilot, and then OpenAI, and Claude, and this is one we're using here at the school that I'll talk a little bit later, called Magic School. And so when we as a school are continuing to take our baby steps in thinking about what makes sense for us, we're not looking necessarily at these large companies that are mass producing products for everyone. We're looking for these companies that are building something educationally specific. We want something that's built for teachers and students to use in school, in a school context. And they're already popping up. Now, while you may hear about OpenAI all the time, and they're huge, there are thousands of different AI companies popping up every day, getting investments and growing, and there's more and more school-specific ones coming up already. So around this time last year, when we were sitting in the SLT, we were talking about what are we doing, and I was like, we need to pump the brakes. There's nothing made for us yet. It's starting to come, and it's coming quickly. So, how are governments regulating AI? As we're talking about this massive growth in generative AI, and we're talking about all these new products coming up, and our students using them, as is normal and as is expected, governments and other NGOs are playing catch up, right? It's hard to stay out in front of these technology companies that are changing and growing and evolving so quickly. It doesn't mean they're not doing anything, but they are a little behind. But there are some really good resources already available on the back of our AI guideline statements. There are a couple of documents I've put there. I've got a further list of tools that we use to help draft our guiding principles. And just last month, the European Parliament passed the EU AI Act. This is something they've been working on for a while. Don't think of this as just being about ChatGPT. This is about all of those AI companies, Google Maps, Tesla, everything. It's AI in general. So while it's great that it was passed into law in March 2024, it's actually going to be another 36 months before it's fully phased in as they finalize the language. And we all know OpenAI and ChatGPT have been public for a year and a half. What's 3 years from now going to be like as they, so it's a constant game of catch up that they're playing. What is great about the EU AI Act is it's risk-based. So the way it works is they're looking at AI tools and categorizing them into unacceptable risk, and then there's parameters around that sort of use. Obviously unacceptable won't be used. High risk, limited risk, and minimum risk. And then there's categories of what needs to happen with those tools when they are put into each of those categories. When they started writing about education, they first kind of had what's in the light green here. And as they continue to update their language and change it, this kind of dark green part was added, which I think is really important. So deployment of AI systems in education is important. In order to help modernize entire education systems, to increase educational quality both offline and online, and to accelerate digital education, thus also making it available to a broader audience. This has always been the promise of technology, right? And you could take the word education out and just put the word humanity in there, right? The goal and the hope is that technology will help improve our lives. It's no different for education. This is also the promise we've heard about the web and its use in education as well, is to that help both offline and online accelerate digital education, but also modernize entire education systems. Okay, so this is their hope with AI, that it will continue to do that beyond what technology has also done. But then what's also here is they've talked about the risks, okay? So education, to where this has been categorized as high risk, and AI use in education has been categorized as high risk, is when it's used to evaluate persons on tests, isn't that education, as part of or as a precondition for their level of education and training. So high-risk AI systems, anytime it's used to categorize someone and say, hey, you belong in this math class, or you should go to this university, or you need this sort of accommodation, that's where AI has been categorized as high risk in education use. So what we're seeing here, in my opinion, is very much a seesaw. Okay? With most things with technology, there are pros, and then there are cons. And so it's our job as a school to weigh those pros and cons and find the benefits for our learners here, and also kind of mitigate those risks or those conflicts. And that's why we're trying to take our time. Once you open the dam, it's hard to get the water back in. right? So, but with that, we also know that all of our kids in high school, kids in middle school, they're already using these tools. So there's a very delicate balance that we have to have with our kids and within schools to give them access or help them use these tools responsibly. And that's what this document is about. So, if we look at the challenges in education, the biggest one that we hear from teachers and that we've always heard isn't new. It's the same thing as it's been since before we even had computers. It's around cheating and plagiarism. This is just a tool that kids are going to use to cheat or plagiarize. And really what that is, it's not cheating or plagiarizing that we're worried about, it's this loss of learning. When you cheat, you're not learning. That's what we care about more than anything. You come to school to learn, to stuff things in here so that you can use it later in life. And so while now, again, when we talk about that accessibility, it's even easier to cheat or plagiarize. With the web, you actually had to kind of do a search and go to the right website to cheat and plagiarize. And before that, you had to walk to the library and copy out of the textbook onto the piece of paper. And before that, you had to walk and find the person who knew what they were talking about so you could copy their ideas. So the biggest problem and why this continues to increase is the access and the ease of use. Now you can just go to ChatGPT and say, hey, write an essay for me on Shakespeare, and it will output something. So again, the concern isn't about the cheating itself, it's about their loss of ability to learn. And each of those steps, they're losing something. At least when they were cheating on the internet, they had to know where to look and to try and find the right resource. Before, when they were in the university library, they had to know the Dewey Decimal System so they could find the right book on the right shelf. So we need to mitigate this. Additionally, bias in AI tools. AI tools, the large language models, they're built on massive amounts of data. Bias is something that we humans have created. That bias passes into the large language model, and then when students get an output from an AI tool, they have to understand that there's bias built into whatever comes out of there, even though it's coming from a computer. It's based on our own thoughts and ideas and beliefs, and training those models may be trained on a certain set of data, and that's nothing new. This is also something we see in media more and more all the time now, right? You watch Fox News, if you watch CNN, there's definitely a certain bias to what they're saying. So, both of these we can fix, or we can at least help mitigate, and it does happen through education. Privacy concerns. So, it is still unclear exactly how these companies use the data they receive from customers. Of course, there's an inherent conflict of interest. ChatGPT gets better the more data it has. Once it runs out of data that it's found on the internet, where is it going to find new data to get even better? The easiest answer to me is those people who are inputting information into ChatGPT. Now, most of these companies have clauses in their privacy and their terms about how they will use their data, what they will train on and what they won't train on. This is how Google and Facebook got rich. It was off of all of our data, right? That's not going to change. So we have to be super careful to talk about A, how we use these tools, and selecting tools that are ethical and using that information in a way that is GDPR compliant, but also in the best interest of humanity. And finally, nothing new here, an over-reliance on technology, right? We talk about that balance all the time. How do we find that balance so that we're using technology when it's necessary for learning, and we're using those non-technology tools when it's necessary for learning? So these are the challenges. We think we have good solutions for these, or ways that we can work through them. But along with the challenges, there are also benefits. Right now, everyone is thinking about AI as a task completer, right? This is our cheating here. We're getting it to do the task for us. But really, we should be thinking about AI as an educator, an idea generator, or even a thought partner. And this is why we're looking for those education-specific AI tools. The ones that when you go in and you want to learn about a topic, it doesn't give you the answer, but it helps tutor you along the way. Hey, I want to learn about whatever it might be, and you give some information in, and it gives you some feedback to help you learn. Exactly what a teacher does. Okay? Not to replace a teacher, but this is something that you can use to personalize. Hey, I know that on my math test I was lower in this area. I can go into my AI tool and spend some time working on skills specific about that anytime. Not in the 8:15 to 3:15 that I'm here at school, not during just the school year, but during the summer, in the evenings when I'm getting ready for an exam. It's that ability for everyone to have a real-time tutor that can walk each student individually through new concepts and ideas. It's also this ability, I remember when I was in school, my teacher would always say to me, hey, you gotta have 3 friends check your work before you bring it to me. I can't do all 24 of you at the same time. It's that ability to have a rough draft and find a tool that can give you some suggestions. Hey, I noticed in your paper that you focus on this. Make sure you are looking at this. And there's great prompts that can already help with this. So as another thought partner, as another way to check your work before you hand it in. And then a really interesting one is to now focus learning on a specific area of an assignment. So often we're looking for one specific thing when we do a learning activity. A good example would be if you're in a theater class and what you're working on is the presentation of your play, or maybe your tone when you're speaking. There, you still need something that you can read on the stage. You still need to do through all of that. But if the specific learning outcome is you're working on your presentation, you can use AI for the other parts. Hey, maybe it can write a draft of a play on the topic for you. And then your learning goal is actually working on how you say it and present it. So it allows you to focus specifically on the topic at hand rather than having to do all that superfluous stuff around the outside. And that's where we get into it for teachers. It's the ability for teachers to automate repetitive operational tasks and greatly increase their time spent on learning activities. So rather than going through that whole process of generating a lesson, you can use what we call the 80-20 rule, where 80% of the work is done by the AI on the front end, and you do the 20%. Hey, I need help generating ideas for this specific lesson. It gives you a rough outline. You spend the 20% after refining it specific to your students, specific to your grade and class, and then you're spending more time looking at their work or working with them individually, aid in preparing learning materials. So it's that balance between managing these challenges and optimizing these benefits that can happen that we're looking for with AI. So, what are we doing at AISD? So in front of you, we have the AI guiding principles. This is our attempt to work through those different challenges and those different benefits in a way that we can start using AI in just a small, minimal way here at the school. You got it there? Great. You're welcome. And so I'm going to give you some time to read through this and talk about it with the people beside you, but I want to highlight a few important things first. So, to ensure that AI serves as a positive catalyst, we will harness it as a tool that augments learning by taking active control of its use in learning, using it only when it aligns with our desired learning outcomes with an informed perspective and understanding the complexities behind how it functions. So the idea is that we're going to actually pick when we use AI and specifically what we use it for. There's a really important part here with an informed perspective. Using a chatbot like OpenAI is only as good as you are as an expert. If you don't know anything about a topic, it's not going to give you a good output, and it's pretty clear to teachers right away, yeah, you didn't generate this. I can tell you didn't learn. So, but the idea here is that we're taking active control. We're not passively giving over our learning to artificial intelligence. We're picking specifically what we're using it for and when we're using it. So, it's only used when it is the most appropriate tool for the learning task. You'll see in there that we say students are allowed to use it only when the teacher says and only exactly what the teacher says for. So if the teacher says, hey, we're really working on tone, you can go ahead and use AI to generate your rough draft, great. But if the teacher says you can't, then you can't, and that's plagiarism. Used for learning as an active and engaging experience, centered on the learning activity. Not write the essay for me, but hey, I'm looking at Napoleon in the Napoleonic War. Can you give me a couple of ideas to get started on things I might want to learn more about? To further develop our understanding and extend our learning to promote higher order thinking. And there are rules for use for both teachers and students. So this is our attempt to provide a framework to get started here at school, knowing that will change. I'll give you maybe about 5 minutes to kind of go through it, maybe talk about it with your partner or someone beside you, see if you have any questions or concerns, or maybe input. Because as I said, nothing is written in stone here. It's all done on a computer. We can update it at any time and look to. So I'll set a timer about 5 minutes. Go ahead and have a read through. Please feel free to ask any questions. We're not done. I've got a few more things I want to go through. But this is our attempt as a school to get started. We know that this also looks different at different ages, right? Specifically, we said for middle school and high school. We know that our high school students, some are using it more than others. And so this isn't necessarily something that we're looking at for our elementary students, and not even for our younger students at middle school, although we have introduced it a little bit there. Again, I'll stop talking, I promise. If you have questions, but please feel free and talk with someone beside you. Yes, ma'am.
Thanks, Brian. Just a quick, I have to leave, so I have a quick comment to say thank you for Kathy and the leadership team for taking this on board. I think it's very, very important. I hope, Kathy, there's a way to even help Brian and his team. Maybe we can put a steering committee together, or one of the, I don't know, just because it's very serious. It is the future for the school. I don't know. I mean, I'm just brainstorming. Maybe there's a way to take this even further. But thank you for the initiative. It's wonderful.
I just want to tap on to what Michael was saying, which is a question to you. Do you think there will be a time where we have an AI course in school? Because where I see this going is we're eventually going to teach children how to be really good prompters to get the data that they want, or the output that they want. So the same way we didn't have computer science classes at AIS, and then eventually we did, and now we have CS. Do you see that this is where this might be going, where we have AI courses?
Yes and no. I think prompting probably isn't going to be very important, because I think tools are going to remove the need to prompt well. I think as the AI improves, you won't have to be a prompt engineer, which is the term that's thrown around. And we have one at the school that maybe I'll show everybody a little bit. But yes, in terms of, I think digital citizenship is more important than ever. Because the solution to all of these isn't to learn more about AI, and it's not necessarily to trust that large businesses will get better at doing what's right for learners. It's about teaching our kids how to responsibly interact with technology and the world in general. So when we teach kids how to best determine what bias is, and how to identify it, and to understand what a large language model is built on and what it does. And when we teach kids about privacy and what companies are doing with their data, then we are empowering our kids to successfully engage with those large corporations whose interest is their shareholders, but also humanity in general. So my answer is yes, a specific AI course, maybe, but more digital citizenship so that they're better prepared and able to engage, I think will be more effective. And like anything, it always comes down to time. So when you're in high school and you have to get, I don't know how many credits it is for the diploma program, but it's 6 out of 8. Are we going to be able to, if AI becomes that big and it's more important than, say, more valuable for some of our learners than biology, because computer science falls into the sciences, then maybe, but it has to balance out. The problem is always time. and finding enough time. So yes, I think so. A standalone course, maybe, but I think the digital citizenship stuff will prepare everybody for a broader range of technologies and whatever comes after generative AI, whether that's artificial general intelligence or whatever that is. Does that kind of answer the question? Yeah.
So I like this idea of providing something that it could be like another school or another country, another country. It could be banned with a motto that says no AI at school. But at the end of the day, we all know that people will use it. So if something is banned, people will use it, but in a certain way under the table. Providing it with a framework is the best way, and not only for AI. So I wish that if we provide this, and what you just presented, that use it this way, but not this way, for this topic, but not for this topic. This is a beautiful start. In addition, that in the future, each teacher can incorporate a rubric that the student themselves, as self-learners, can match their output to the rubric that we have a rubric also for AI, that the students feel comfortable when they go behind the back of the teacher and use AI when they're not supposed to. They know that in the rubric there is an AI category, so let me feel more comfortable and motivated and honest to match my AI output and differentiate between my own output. So rubrics in addition to guidelines and frameworks. So I think this also will help both stakeholders.
Yeah, definitely. And we need to build up to that, but I don't think I think it's a great idea to build some of that in there so that they actually see it when they're being assessed. We're not quite done yet, so I'm going to keep going. There's something I'm thinking about, but it's left my brain. Hopefully it will come back. So, my last slide. How can I help my children with AI? So, when we get back to that first concern there, did I go too far? I went too far. This one here, the loss of learning. This is what we have to constantly talk to our kids about. I remember what it was. The reason we need to start doing this now is when we want them to make these mistakes. If they're gonna cheat or plagiarize, I want my kids to do it when they're in their K-12 years, when I'm at home at night with them, when I know they're in a room with only 18 other kids and their teacher knows them really well. Because now is the time to make mistakes and learn from them. And that's part of learning, that's something that we did. So if they're gonna make mistakes, I want them to do it now, when I'm around to help them, when their teachers who see them every day are here to help them and learn from them, not when they go off to university and I'm not there and they're in these big classes of 200 kids and the teacher is just like, you cheated, you're done. So that was my point about that. And so that's why this conversation needs to continue to happen. Why are you so lucky that you get to go to the American International School of Vienna? Because it's to learn. It's for you to grow as an individual, and I know you're busy, and sometimes that IB homework is taking a long time, but we're here right now so that we can stuff our brains and learn as much as possible. And if you're using ChatGPT, if you're using it in the wrong way, you're cheating yourself now, and it's going to catch up with you in the future. So I do think that's a really important conversation to regularly have with your kids. Ask them about how they are using AI. I'm sure most of your kids, if they're in high school, have at least experimented with it. Ask them to show you ChatGPT or Gemini or Cloud. Talk to them about their prompts and what they're creating right now and how they're using that. We had a student who we were going to have come talk to the high school teachers about how he uses it to study. It's really fascinating. Talk about bias. Talk about why certain messages are shared by the media and why you might see things. There was when Google's Bard was their AI and they rebranded it Gemini. And originally, when it came out, it had a huge, is overcompensated the right word? There was bias in terms of the images that it was generating and the race of those people that it was generating. There's some really great articles, and it's a really easy discussion to have about, hey, because it comes out of AI, doesn't make it right and doesn't mean that it doesn't have loaded political messages behind it. So if you look that up, there's a really easy conversation to have there. Read our guiding principles so that you're familiar, and read them with your kids. So talk about the rules for using it in there with students, and how the teacher has to say, okay, you can use it at this time and for this way. Brainstorm ways it can be used to enhance learning. There's lots of great prompts out there that they can already use. We continue to look for tools that help with that. And then Common Sense Media is a nonprofit based in the States that literally every time I talk to parents, I recommend. They have some great resources for parents on navigating generative AI. This slideshow will go into scoops, so you'll be able to click this link. You can't click it right now because it's up here, but you'll be able to click it when you get it.
In the future.
In the future, yeah, probably. And use generative AI together. So try using it as a family. Plan some meals for next week. Look at some activities that you could do as a family. So work together through it. Start helping your kids learn to understand it, because it's not going away. It is going to continue to increase. And the best way to combat that is not to ignore it, but to educate and learn. That's what we do here. And so I'm going to show you one tool that we have at the school that we've been working with our teachers. So when I was talking about how the need for prompting is going to be less important, it's because of tools like this. So Magic School is a new startup based out of the US. It's founded by a former principal and teacher, and it's built specifically for schools. So what they have in here is all of these different tools. There's 70 of them. Help generate a family email, help generate a rubric, student work feedback.
Yep.
So rather than having to generate everything in that prompt yourself, it asks you for the specific information as a teacher, and then it helps craft that. And so when we talk, so you don't need to be a prompt master to work with something like this. You can just put it in, and then it gives you an output. And then you do the 20% after. So you put the initial info in, you get an output, you do the 20% after to kind of craft it. This is something that we pay for our teachers. It also has a student piece in it that we've done some introductions with students about. What's great about it is once you pay for it, our data is private and is not actually given to ChatGPT to train, and students don't actually even log in. What's great about the student side of it is that students only have access to specific tools that teachers turn on and off each time. So these tools are coming for school. Khan Academy, I bet everybody knows Khan Academy. They have a tool called Conmigo that they're trialing in the States that really is a tutor. So we're looking as a school for these ones, AI tools that are school specific, that are meant for education. Not as much the ChatGPTs and the Claudes, the big ones.
And so we can't use that at home because you need a login.
There's a free version.
Okay.
There is a free version that you can use. So yeah, and it does work with the paid version, which we pay for as a school. We get access to, it works with GPT-4, which is the newest GPT. I think the free version only works with 3.5. But it's a pretty interesting little tool. But the student part, I think, is only in the paid part. And that literally a teacher turns on one specific feature for students and turns it off when they're done using it.
And you can register with a personal email, or does it have to, no organization?
Yeah, no.
Cool.
With a personal email, you won't get access to the enterprise version, which is the one that we pay for because it's tied to our...
And you're using it for middle school already, or?
Teachers use it regularly, and we introduced it just a little bit. So we had each grade level did an AI digital citizenship lesson, and then they played around with one or two little tools, had kids test it out just a little bit. Not an everyday kind of thing, but just hey, here's an introduction to AI. Okay? Yes?
I have a question.
Great.
It's a big topic.
Yeah.
And I'm really curious what we do as a school to help everybody to navigate it. especially our teachers, what are the programs to teach, what are the plans for the school to teach your teachers how to use it and not abuse it. And same deal, technology, especially AI, is one of the fastest growing fields right now. Do school plans to hire more teachers for the technology? Because currently we have one in middle school and one in high school, and it's just physically impossible for one person to cover such topics, especially our children all born after the phone is invented. So they are native with technology and we are not. And to find somebody who's able to teach them something which they don't know and how to use it properly, not faster than they learn it themselves, it's a really difficult task. So what are the school's plans to expand our teacher base and how to teach our teachers how to use these beautiful tools?
Yeah, it's my job to teach teachers. So we've ran 6 sessions already this year. 2 in elementary, 2 in middle school, 2 in high school, dedicated after school Wednesday afternoons to using AI. So we're already doing that. We've spent a bunch of time with teachers already. We have more than one teacher in the middle school because we have trimester courses. Yes, we have a few expert tech-only teachers, but all of our teachers use tech and all of our teachers understand how to use tech. And so we teach that through digital citizenship, and we're just redoing our digital citizenship curriculum to be rolled out next year. So it's more about, as I shared.
The digital citizenship standards will be threaded throughout the curriculum, all the way through the school.
It's more about getting that digital citizenship into every class rather than having standalone technology classes. Again, the thing is, if you have an AI class, what are you getting rid of to have that AI class? Because we don't have more time in the school day to add classes. So if we're adding it in, we have to take something else out. So our approach is to embed it into the existing classes so everybody gets it. Because not everybody takes computer science in middle school. And not everybody takes computer science in high school. There just isn't time. And some kids aren't interested in computer science. So our goal is to push it into math and social studies and English and have little stop points where we're doing a lesson on whatever it may be, media, and then we stop and we talk about bias in that media for 5 to 10 minutes, highlight where that matches our ISTE standards specifically, and talk a little bit about it.
Can you define ISTE standards?
The International Society for Technology and Education. So they have what are generally regarded as the best technology standards for uses in school. So that's our answer. It is not necessarily to hire more technology teachers. They're also really hard to come by. But to embed it into all classes as much as possible.
So that's part of the curriculum development work that's going to be continuing next year, is to embed those standards throughout.
Yep.
I still have questions for high school because one teacher is teaching 4 subjects and it's just generally really difficult for one person to have that much workload, so the quality will suffer. It's always suffer if you have too much work.
When I was a teacher in Riyadh, I taught 6 different classes. And I was a high school technology teacher and I did 6.
Maybe you're a genius, or maybe quality will suffer. So we don't know.
It is true. It is true.
That's the thing, and especially in high school, especially for kids who actually want to study technology. So I
Yeah.
don't know. Especially if you're going to start offering the IB in high school,
Yeah.
in computer science.
It's not,
really required.
your concerns aren't falling on deaf ears. I hear them definitely. It is also based on, we do look at, when we do course registration, how many kids are interested in signing up for those sorts of things. So we have to staff based on interest as well. But we have some other things that I don't know if we're prepared to share yet about some outside organizations that we're looking at as well.
We're working on you can talk about the pilot that we're developing.
Yeah, that we're working with the Global Online Academy, which offers non-traditional courses online for students who are interested in that. So,
And that includes technology topics.
Yeah.
It's not limited.
yeah, courses that,
How the tutoring is still happening there, because, my kid can study everything online. Why need teachers then? importance of the human interactions and for the child to know, to be able to go to the person, to the adult who actually knows better than him, and explain him instead of searching everything on the internet.
Yeah, well, this is the balance of a school of 800 kids. We offer things in person based on the interest of what we can, and then we have to look for creative solutions for some of those outside things. It doesn't mean that technology classes aren't important here at the school. We do value them, but we have to balance that within the time frame of what we have in the school day and our other needs in the DP program and things like that. Okay? Yeah.
I just want to say, I'm sure that's like having more classes is an issue, but it sounds to me, and the thing that I really took from this is that the idea of digital citizenship is the idea of citizenship nowadays. I mean, that's like, they are the same thing and for our kids' lives and becoming for us too. So I think there is no teacher who's gonna be able to learn before our teenagers and teach back to them because they're learning faster than we are. And so I just want to say thank you for, it really seems to me like you're taking baby steps and you're looking at it, and the point is to teach the kids. You can't teach ahead of the technology, so when you see the new technology, what questions are you going to ask yourselves? And that's, I think for myself and for my family, that's what I'm more concerned about, because they're going to learn the technology before whatever teacher is going to learn the technology and teach it back to them. So this is very important to me. Thank you very much for your work on this.
Thank you. I think there's two important things that you brought up there. One, if we could move slower, I would, but we can't because our kids are using it already. So I tried to pump the brakes. My biggest concern is this one, as much as possible, but you can only do that for so long because they're using it outside of school anyhow. So we have to kind of start and stop as much as we can to help them be successful and to navigate all of these concerns. The second one about your citizenship, you're totally right. And so we're looking at the CASEL standards and all of those things for citizenship. And when we're looking at digital citizenship, traditionally it's been taught as a standalone subject, which when it's not taught in context, doesn't provide the same amount of learning for our kids and is a waste of time a little bit in some ways. So if you're teaching about just doing a straight lesson on bias, it's not going to, with the scaffolding in our brains and the way we learn, it's not going to have the same impact if you just talk about bias than if you talk about bias in a media lesson where you're already evaluating why a news reporter wrote that certain way. So there are digital citizenship things like passwords that make sense as a standalone lesson that maybe you do in an advisory class. But then to have that real impact, you've got to embed it into something that's already happening somewhere else in the class so they can build it into their mental framework and make it fit in. Rupa.
Actually, that bias is what I am most concerned about, because you see in high school the IB works that come out, like IB assignments and all. Even like I'm not talking about computer science, even like English, SL or HL. The books that they read, and then if they're trying to do something about writing, the bias comes up a lot. Like, they were reading something about Trevor Noah, and what sort of bias. And that is the most thing I'm concerned about, that the children don't grow up with bias while they're thinking about, because at IB, they're much at higher level, thought process is going inquiry based. So privacy, of course, is also my concern, for a teenager, and lots of things are happening, but the bias, because they don't really get all the balanced views.
But I think we missed out on this as kids. If I think about when I went to school, I read a textbook, and that textbook had bias. Mm-hmm. And that was the answer. That was the way World War II happened. And my teacher believed it, and I believed it. So I think our kids are lucky that they're growing up in a time where we are putting a greater emphasis on understanding where is that information coming from, and what is that person's trying to sell?
Exactly.
The over-reliance on technology component of the challenges, how are we addressing it as a school? That's one of my questions, and then I'll have another one.
Okay, great. So my answer to this always is using the right tool for the task. So it's a teacher's job to identify when using a calculator is appropriate in a math class as opposed to when working it out on a paper and pencil. And so this comes down to a teacher's expertise as a teacher to identify that, hey, yeah, right now your computer is okay because I'm focusing on this specific part of this standard right now, and what we're trying to learn, the best tool for that is AI or a laptop or a computer or a ruler or a compass or a pen and pencil. So our teachers are experts. They've taught for decades. They have qualifications. They are the ones who know best what tool is most appropriate for that task. And that's why it's written in here. Use the task when it's the most appropriate tool for the task. That's the best answer that we have for that. Trust our experts. Second question, and then?
The second question is how much additional training, if you can somehow give an estimate, do the teachers need in order to be able to identify that 20% that the student puts into the end product? Or is it so obvious that, okay, this is the 80% created by a generative AI, and this is the 20%? Is it, how much extra do the teachers need to be able to identify that?
This is why we're lucky we have small classes, because you get to know your kids. So you get to know, I know my son and my daughter very well. I know what they've created and what they haven't created. And this is why small classrooms are more important than ever, to get to know those kids. And again, to say, you can use this tool for this part of the task. Show me, save the chat that you had with Magic School, because it saves it in there for the teacher to see, so I can see what Magic School gave you, and I can compare it against what you turned in. So when a teacher opens a Magic School room, they pick the tools, and it records everything the kids do in there, and they can go in and see, this is the prompt Bori put in, this is what I gave Bori, here's Bori's finished product. Wow, those are the same. I guess I need to talk to Bori. But there's also a point where a teacher knows their kids and is like, I don't think so. But yeah, the part of this is the, what's that called? Not the bibliography, but citing the AI and giving the actual output so that you as a teacher can see what was theirs and what wasn't theirs. And then we'll come back. Yeah?
Yeah, my concern is a little bit to find a balance between doing everything on the computer and doing some paperwork. Because, I mean, my kids are in middle school, or in elementary school, and they can't focus very good, and they don't know how much time they spend on it. I mean, we have so much, we don't know if they do the homework, and I think the school needs to have something on the computer with, I don't know, with the chats and everything. I mean, the parents can't control it, and you can't sit every time next to them and seeing if they're really doing the homework. And so they spend so much time on that homework every day, if you don't know if they really do this, right? And I think it's also for their brain not to sit the whole time on that laptop and it's not doing, they only do paperwork in German actually. I never see them doing any paperwork anymore. And I think sometimes for their brain it would be better to also write some stuff with their hands to memorize, because not every person can memorize by seeing and reading it on a...
Agreed. Everybody's different. The easy answer would be... The easy answer would be you could lock the computer to only these specific things. The reality is it's not possible with everything being on the browser. We have had a few people come in and say, hey, we'd really like more control over the computer, and some kids need that, and so we help them a little bit with that. But I'll get back to the point of now's the time to make mistakes and learn, and to fail a couple of times. I have a friend who, in high school, we called him Driving Drew, because every time we went out to party, he drove, because his parents were very religious and he wasn't allowed to drink, he wasn't allowed to do all of these things, and he went away to university. He didn't make it through first year because he had never had the opportunity to make those mistakes and learn from them when he was in an inclusive environment at home in a small high school. I'm not saying that's everybody, but I do think learning those time management skills, now is the time to do it when they're in middle school, and hopefully see that improvement. So there are some things that we can do, but again, it comes back to teachers saying, this you have to do paper and pencil, and this you have to do online. And we do talk about that, but there's no number.
Yeah,
There's no number that says,
it's more balanced, I would say.
yeah,
Right now it's really, trouble.
fair enough.
Yeah.
You'll also see that in the elementary when teachers are choosing to do things that are more tactile, things that are more hands-on, you're using the markers and paper and, just need to construct with their hands and not always.
Yeah, not every person is the same. I mean, some people can realize how they're getting lost, right, on the computer. Like, don't have the time, even if you put the watch next to the computer.
And that's why we encourage family media agreements through Common Sense Media. Their family media agreement's great. We did one with our daughter when she got a phone this year. She is less of a challenge than my son. Now, he's young, he doesn't have a phone yet, he doesn't have the same access to technology, but I know that when he gets older, we're going to have to do different things with him to help him stay on task when he's on the device. But everybody has different needs, not just technology-wise, diet-wise. We talk about a media diet more than just media in general, because I need something very different for dinner than my wife does, than my son does, than my daughter does. So it looks different for everybody.
So I like this, that parents in the room learning super important information, and I don't expect 800 parents to be in this room. But I know that some of the parents are missing super important information, so my wish. So I wish that the school can invest more in raising awareness toward parents, especially that even before the AI introduction, that we need to I know the answer to this is always, we cannot control what happened at home, and I totally agree with this. But sometimes what happened at home is brought to school, and this is a critical step. I trust that the school can do something about it. Raising awareness, having meetings, encouraging parents to be more vigilant toward their children, what they bring back to school. I wish that we can do something about that step.
Great, and that's what we're trying to do today. And like you say, that, and that's why we have Scoops, and we'll continue to offer these events. We also ask that you share with people what a great time you had today. We can say we did a great presentation today, and people will read through the bias in there, that of course we're going to say it's great. But if you tell the moms that pick up and the dads that pick up, and when you see them for coffee, that, hey, it was a really great session, I'd love to see you there next time, that's going to be way better. I don't know if anybody reads Seth Godin. Seth Godin does like daily newsletter tips on just productivity and being happy in life, and he was talking about engagement numbers and how companies publish these engagement numbers about how many times people click and how they're useless compared to real references that you get from friends and family, and that's what companies should be promoting more.
I mean, through counseling office could be done some stuff from specifically elementary, but I see some counseling office in the high school doing a couple of events here and there. But if we can do through counseling office in elementary some raising awareness events, I would be very interested.
Okay, great. We did a digital citizenship one next year, but yeah, definitely happy to share that one. I'm happy to stay and take questions. The last thing I will say is, as I said when we created this document, there's a good chance we'll do a similar session next year to this, and a year from now, this document could be completely different, and we could be talking about our new AI class in the high school. All of this changes so quickly that we're doing what we think is best in terms of what education is right now, and we know that that's going to continue and evolve. And our real goal, more than anything else, is to not worry about the loss of learning, but to promote the learning, that our kids are coming every day and that they're learning what they need to be successful in a world that's going to be full of AI and all those other things that we see. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.